Hope y'all can see me. I'm trying to get this off my chest real quick. Hope I got enough light in here for y'all. Trying to get a few more people in here. Just give me a second. Hopefully a few more people will get in. Wanted to break something down. Some of y'all might still be out in the frantic Black Friday shopping spree. Some of you may be refusing to be a part of the madness. Either way, I got something to say, no matter which group you fall into. Hey, what's up, yeah? Can you see me, King? I got just a little bit of light. I'm trying to get this off before it get too dark. All right, man, I'm gonna go ahead and get this started because I don't got a lot of time. I want to get this off my chest. So I got a question for the few of y'all that's in here. I would like to get a lot of people in, but just, I want to, for the few people that's listening, if you will, I want to take a guess. Type in your guess for this. Here's the question. If African Americans currently remove all of their household income, their household wealth, like all the wealth that we had, okay, good, I'm coming through clear, good. If all African Americans right now were to leave this country and remove our household wealth, what we have in our households, all of our households together, what percentage of the U.S. total wealth would be removed? Just give me a guesstimate. Give me a guess, percentage-wise, if we were, you know, think about it, I'll give you some numbers. We're about 13% of the country. And if our wealth was all of a sudden removed from this country, what percentage of that would be the American household? Anybody want to take a guess? I don't know. Are people leaving? Y'all ain't trying to answer that one? I'm going to ask this question again. I want a couple answers. If African Americans all of a sudden left the U.S. and took our household wealth that we currently have right now as a collective, what percentage of total household income would be removed from the United States right now? Anybody want to take a guess? Somebody got to give me a guess. What percentage? If I'm gonna keep asking to somebody, at least type in a guesstimate. If all African Americans left the country right now, somebody give me a percentage. My man, yeah, say 75%. Said if all African Americans left this country right now and took our household wealth from out of America, how much of American wealth would be removed from the country? I guess. So I was hoping a few more people would take a guess, but I only got a few people in here. My man, yeah, said 75%. We got a couple of more people. All right, Ray. Brother Ray might to give me a good guess. Ray, I'm trying to get a couple guesses before I get an answer. If African Americans left the country right now and took all of our household wealth that we currently have from America right now, what percentage, what percentage of of wealth will be removed from America currently? Give me a guess. I'm gonna do one more guess and I'm gonna answer it, I promise. I'm trying to stay in the light. I'm coming to work, trying to get in this. I've been wanting to get this off my chest all day. Please, somebody answer. I don't want to, please stay till y'all hear the answer. I'm gonna give y'all the answer. All right, people leaving. All right, let me go ahead and give y'all the answer. Maybe y'all can watch it later. So right now, if all of us left America right now, literally $3 trillion would leave America as we speak. 3 trillion. Ray says 4%. All right, that's a good guess, Ray. That 3 trillion actually would equate to 0.02% of American wealth right now. 0.02% 2% of American wealth right now. That's it. Right now, America currently has $107 trillion that we as Americans have as household wealth. Not the government, what we personally have as households in America is 107 trillion. You can go Google this. Just look up total household income. I ain't gonna just give you my source. I'm gonna show you how to get to it. African Americans have 3 trillion. 3 trillion divided by 107 ends up being 0.02% of all household wealth in America. That's it. I use that, if you think of the title of what I put down for this video, Too Broke to Be the Biggest Consumers. I've talked about our consumer numbers on other videos, but I so happened to come across that number, and I'm gonna tell you how. A good friend of mine, Michael Sutler, put up an article that was talking about how the top 8% has more wealth than the bottom 92% in America, which is not related to just us as African Americans, right? And so while I'm looking at dissecting his article, those that know me know I'm a numbers guy. I like to speak from facts and I like to do research. And so I do a lot of research, especially on things of this nature. And so while doing the research on that article, I came across this number here. 3 trillion is what we as African Americans, sounds like a big number. So what happens is, quite often when we're talking about our own community, you will only hear financial numbers in the context of just us. So for example, we always hear about the 1.3 trillion we spend annually. And people will attach that to us being the biggest consumers. Not, the number is correct, but if you never hear it in comparison to what other groups spend, then you can believe the myth that we are the biggest spenders. Actually, no race or ethnic group spends any higher or less than any other ethnic group in the country. We spend 1.3 trillion every year. All right, let me see here. Let me see what my man Ray Wilkinson says. My man Ray says you can also find that when you understand black tax. It's kind of a separate issue for what I'm talking about now. That plays out in how we price, and that's what Ray, is about us learning how and how to do business and how to come up with comparative pricing based on market. A lot of times we don't consider that, and when I say we don't consider it, it's understandable that we don't consider it, because the reality is if we're very honest about our opportunity to operate in the American economy, in a substantial way, we're still relatively new to that. That's just calling it for what it is, whether people want to believe that or not. But anyway, let me stay on point with this real quick. So, in comparison to other numbers, our 1.3 trillion is what we spend annually. Hispanics spend 1.4 trillion annually, which makes sense. They're about 2% higher of us in population. Whites, on the other hand, spend 9.5 trillion yearly. That comes out to 4.5 times what we spend. Guess how much the population difference is? They're 4.5 times us in population. All groups are spending at the same rate. My man Haziq Ali always says, the United States stands for the United States of advertising. So the United States, in its capitalistic society, has completely mastered making all Americans consumers. So I'm not saying any of this to say that it's okay for us to be nothing but consumers. That's not why I'm saying this. I'm having this conversation because I'm absolutely fed up with our country going back and forth. Hold on. Coming to work. For vendors? Yeah. Okay, got it. Hold on 1 second, y'all. Hold on 1 second, I got y'all. Let me finish this thing. I'm almost done. All right, thanks a lot. So anyway, So so I'm fed up with how on a Black Friday, for example, forth with our own community, shaming one another, ultimately about a whole bunch of money we don't even have. That's just keeping it 100% real. Like, I'm not out here doing a whole bunch of Black Friday spending. I spent about $60 with my own, moneymotivation.com, the gear I got on. Definitely go check them out. I always say if you are going to spend with people who look like you. I do have this one quote I love to say. Until we understand to spend with our own, we're going to forever be begging. So I'm all about spending with our own and spending and buying black. That's absolutely something that's needed, regardless of how much money we got or don't have. So I will always encourage for those who are going to spend on Black Friday to spend with your own. So that encouragement is necessary. I will also say I'm a huge advocate of financial literacy. If you ain't got nothing but pennies, you better damn sure learn how to protect your money and turn it into something, because you can learn to invest regardless of how much you have to one day leave a legacy. That is absolutely necessary. That is something that we should all be striving for. But what we should not be doing is taking that $3 trillion in household wealth that we currently have as a collective, which sounds like a lot on its own. What we should not be doing is taking it and sit here shaming one another about how somebody else is spending or how we're not spending, as if there's a problem inherently with African Americans, when the reality is that $3 trillion is only 0.02% of the total household wealth right now. So we sitting up here shaming one another into what we should or should not be doing is very ineffective. And all it ultimately does is reinforce to our next generation that we have these bad habits that in reality are consumer American capitalism habits that other groups have too. So we shouldn't reinforce for our black children that we're somehow worse. Again, it's not making being a consumer okay, but it is attacking the idea that we're taking these false narratives that it come from history. These narratives come from history, and we continue to reinforce them as if that we're worse, that we're somehow worse than other groups, when in reality we are susceptible to advertising just like every other group is, and they waste their money on different things. So yes, we will spend more money on clothes. We will buy fancier cars. But if you were to go look at the Georgia Department of Consumer, who puts out the report on American spending, if you go look at that year, you'll see other groups just frivolously spend their monies in other areas. So when we're looking inside of ourselves and we're upset, and I talk about this example all the time, and we're upset that we're in a Jordan line and we don't see other groups there, I get it. I get the frustration that goes with that. But I promise you, Nike spent billions of dollars of advertising to make that, to in a sense, make that something that was marketable, as we were watching Michael Jordan become this icon in areas where, let's talk about real narratives, an area like such as sports or entertainment, where we've always, in a sense, been allowed to have, to be put out front as if that's all we could do. And so when you go market to that, then yeah, we've become consumers in that area, but we're not spending more than others when the numbers and the facts say otherwise. So again, this is just me just tired of the frustration of us shaming one another as if it's going to help improve things. And the example I'll give is my own real life example. I thought about this before doing the video. I used to have a best friend, and her mother would often, every holiday, which we know people do this, every holiday she would break her back to provide a good Christmas for her children and her grandchildren. As I got a little older and came to understand that's what she was doing, I remember it frustrated me because I'm like, they know you love her, love them. This is not necessary. She would literally go into debt to provide a Christmas holiday. And that was frustrating for me. But I was a young man, and I would talk to her about not, trying not to do that. And what I do realize is it's the conceptually, while it's very frustrating, and we probably know other people who are doing the same thing during the holidays. As a young man, what was frustrating, again, to see that, I also realized it was no different than, which is I want to give a comparison and hopefully make this all relate. My grandmother, who, when I went off into the military school and could only come home every year, I remember one year, because I had already started getting, in a sense, raising my awareness and was getting away from holidays and just what they were about, and didn't necessarily want to participate them in that from that standpoint. I was kind of coming to that level of consciousness. And so the first place I started was in my own family, in the sense that don't get me anything for the holidays. At the time, I would still get them things for holidays, but I made it very adamant I didn't want anything, gifts and things of that nature. Again, this was my own conscious level. I wasn't putting my conscious level on my family, so I still would get them things, but I made it very clear I'm not into the material things. Please don't get me anything. And eventually they started abiding by that. But one year I asked my grandmother, I says, and my grandmother kind of would still do it. I was her first grandson and her favorite, if you will. And so when she would still do it, one year I kind of tricked her, because being away in the military, I was never getting like them famous home cooked meals that only my grandma could make for me. So one year, instead of saying I don't want anything, I sent her a menu, and it was a menu of all my favorite foods that I wasn't getting throughout the entire year while being away from school and being this way in school and military school. And so I came home and fixed 2 whole plates when she made that. So every year, instead of getting me anything, my grandmother would go all out to fix foods that I like, because I would come home once a year. Well, eventually my grandmother got older, and she already had issues with heart attacks and diabetes and things of that nature. So she would wear herself out. And so we would come home for the holiday. I would come home for the holidays, get this amazing meal, and the same day or a couple of days later, I'm taking her to the hospital because she's having complications with her. And when this happened like 2-3 years in a row, I'm like, I said, Mom, don't fix all that food. Don't fix all that food. Don't do that anymore. It makes you sick or whatever. And so she said, okay. And then when she did that particular year, she took about 2 weeks to do everything instead of cramming it all, in 4 days. And so she was like, I did it that way so I wouldn't be sick. And she still got sick a week later. So I was adamant at the hospital. I'm like, never again can you fix all this stuff for the holidays. I'm adamant. I literally got away from the typical holiday menu, and it was like a regular meal, like fried, like something simple. And what I did was I had to trick her, because out of her love for her favorite grandson, she would fix all this food for the family, but mainly because I'm coming home once a year. So I gave her just a regular menu, not the typical turkey and stuffing and all this kind of stuff. And so she fixed that and was just fine. I give that long example to say it took me 4 or 5 years to get my grandmother to get it through her head. Don't overextend yourself to fix me my favorite food, even though I'm coming once a year. Well, that's the same sentiment that my best friend's mother had when she was overspending. Not in a smart area, but for her, that was her way of showing her children and grandchildren that she loved them or whatever. And when I would talk to her about not doing that, I didn't go up to her and shame her and tell her she's stupid for doing it. But that's how we treat one another. Just like I wouldn't have told my grandmother she's stupid, as much as I hated taking her to the hospital after getting these great meals for the first few years of this. We didn't know the first year it was going to be an ongoing thing. But I couldn't imagine having said to my grandmother, you're stupid for fixing all this food when I told you not to. That's literally how we treat one another when it comes to Black Friday. As if that's going to get people to improve. Or you can have empathy to our reality, which is, again, too broke to be the biggest consumers. That myth is an all-out lie. We're too broke. That's the reality. Whether we want to call it a reality or not, you can look at it. I'm not trying to be negative when I say we're too broke. I'm knowing that people are operating off this myth that we're spending a bunch of money that quote unquote we don't have, when the reality is we don't have as much money as people think we're spending. Even the 1.3 trillion, if I were to break it down, it majority goes to housing, transportation, and healthcare. There's not a lot of frivolous money left over, but for the frivolous money that is left over, yes, it goes. A lot of it go to Hennessy, Jordans, clothes, Mercedes. Not acting like we don't overspend in areas. That's not the point of this video. But it's nowhere close to the numbers that you think it is, because you're never shown or given the numbers comparatively. If you just tuned in at the very beginning of this video, just to give a perspective, and this is why I did the video, I asked the question: if all African Americans left the community without a household wealth as we speak right now, what percentage of the American economy would be taken out? And I had people give a couple of guesses. One guy said 75%, and my brother Ray Wilkerson said 4%. The real number is 0.02%. Don't take my word for it. Go Google household wealth income. How much wealth do Americans have currently? It's $107 trillion. All of us as Americans have. The African American community has $3 trillion of that. But if you only hear the 3 trillion number, it sounds like we're just wasting our entire $3 trillion, when the reality is majority of our money goes to things that we need. We definitely need more financial literacy. We can push that without talking shit about one another. If you've got to the conscious level, just as I did, about these holidays and they don't mean a lot to you, great. Save your money, invest your money. But to sit out there and watch and get on social media and talk shit about your brothers and sisters who you don't know their financial scenarios. It could be their extra money. They could be investing and providing for the holiday. That's their choice. Let people be. And let's start talking about investing. Let's start talking about financial literacy without talking shit about why we're doing it, when that's all related to historical stimuli that created false myths that we're still pushing and reinforcing for our own children because we're talking shit about our own people. Very unnecessary to get the improvement that I guess you think you're looking for when you're talking shit on social media about how we spend money. The reality is that's for your own ego. If you've gotten above the fray and not out here wasting your money on Friday, good for you. Bring your next generation along to do the same thing. Convince people in your circle to be smarter and not do the same thing. But don't talk shit like there's something inherently wrong with us when I can just prove to you the numbers show we're not spending no different than anyone else. Again, I'm not doing this as an excuse. It's more about collectively how we see ourselves, and we must start speaking more truth than what we're currently speaking. When we rely on these false myths and exasperate how much we spend and how wasteful we are, when right now half of America does not have $1,000 in savings. We're not half of America. So plenty of people are in the same boat, right or wrong, not trying to stay in the same boat. I'm fully about empowerment, economic empowerment, and part of making economic empowerment a reality is to speak what's good, speak what we know. My man Terry Simmons, that's a cat I'm trying to bring onto the Mental Dialogue Talk Show. I love the way he get down, man. He just speak truth, what they call it, speak truth to facts, or however they say it. He don't spend time. I don't never see him dog. He says, hey, here's what's good and here's what's bad, or here's what people don't show you. That's some reality. But just talking shit as if we're inherently worse than others, there's nothing true about that, especially when it comes to this money. And again, we really talking shit over scraps when you look at what we really have in comparison to American wealth. 8% of the country has more wealth than 92% of the country. And we talking shit. Stop. If there's any frustration, that's it. Let people be. Let people come into their own consciousness. If you've learned something, teach it to others without talking shit. Can we do that? That's all I'm asking. We're not the biggest consumers. And the facts are, we're too broke to be, even if we tried to be, as a collective. But when I say that's the facts, that's not to shame us. That's not to say we can't collectively get more money. We definitely need financial literacy to improve that. Let's keep getting that. But we're not inherently worse, even though we're reinforcing this in our own mind. If people say you can't get to where you need to be until it's in your mind first, well, let's get it out of our minds that we are mythically way bigger consumers than everyone else, when that in fact is not true. So with that said, tomorrow, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Mental Dialogue Talk Show, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are doing the show, African Americans, what does collective economics really look like? I hope a lot of y'all call in. Go follow me on the Mental Dialogue Facebook page. It'll be there. If you follow us on IG, which is mental_dialogue, it'll be in the bio, or you can call in and listen, 646-787-1691. If you want to get in it, give us your opinion on it, you can press 1 when you're listening on the phone, and we'll get you on the show with us tomorrow as well. So I hope you tune in for that. My name is Montoya Smith, a.k.a. Black Socrates. All I ask is that you think.